Dr. Banner. Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
He won the hearts of millions of Marvel fans as the ferocious Hulk. But it wasn't always so easy for Mark Ruffalo. There was a time in his life when Hollywood had practically rejected him, and not many people were willing to give him a chance that he needed. Yet, after losing countless loved ones and having to fight for his life, Mark somehow still manages to find the joy in life and inspires his fans to be kind to others. But how did he manage to get through such a dark time? How did he survive so many losses and still have the strength to fight for himself? Don't forget to subscribe to Rumour Juice. We have everything you need to know about your favorite Hollywood celebs. Give that notification bell a ring too. While Mark was living in LA and taking acting classes, he had a best friend named Michael. The pair were incredibly close. They shared the same interests and experiences, and the actor felt like Michael was the only person he could really talk to. Tragically, in 1994, Mark's best friend took his own life. The actor was so shaken by the loss of his friend, he felt unable to process it. Not only did he wish that he could have done something to help Michael, but he was now left feeling completely alone. The one person he felt like he could talk to was now gone. When he died, it rocked me out of a dark depression. The moment he left, I realized that death wasn't an escape, that suicide wasn't an answer. The actor said that Michael's death helped him realize the value of his own life, keeping him from making the same decision. To Ruffalo, acting became a way of coping and moving forward past the pain of his younger years. He may seem like the sweet, smiley, and goofy actor we've all come to know and love, but ever since he was a child, Mark has had to battle with ongoing depression. After graduating high school, his friends would talk about their future goals, and his parents would ask him about his plans following graduation. Young Mark was too embarrassed to admit that he wanted to be an actor, so he would lie and pretend he had the same dreams as all of his friends. Later in life, Ruffalo discovered that some contributing factors to his childhood alienation might have been due to undiagnosed ADHD and dyslexia. I was miserable. This sounds sappy, but I was always aware of the frailty of human beings, the sorrow in the nature of things. I didn't know how to live in the world, how to cope. I felt like I didn't belong. He confessed that he spent most of his time smoking, surfing, and wandering around aimlessly instead. A period when he was, quote, just about ready to jump off a bridge. Ruffalo commented on his depression. It's dysthymia. It's a long-running, low-grade depression all the time. I've been struggling with that my whole life. It's like a low-grade depression that just is running around all the time in the background. One morning, Mark woke up after having a terrible nightmare that he had developed a brain tumor. For some reason, he couldn't seem to shake off the feeling that something was wrong with his body, and he decided to go see a doctor. After a CAT scan, he received a diagnosis of acoustic neuroma, which is a rare non-cancerous tumor.
She said, you have a mass behind your left ear the size of a golf ball.
At the same time of his diagnosis, his wife, Sunrise Coigny, was expecting her first child. Mark didn't want to put his wife under stress during her pregnancy, so he chose to keep his diagnosis to himself.
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Several weeks after the birth of his son Keen, the actor broke the news to his wife, and he underwent surgery to remove the tumor. Although the operation was a success, the side effects resulted in Ruffalo losing hearing in his left ear, and one side of his face became completely paralyzed. The unfortunate diagnosis didn't only correspond with the birth of his son. Ruffalo's acting career was also starting to kick off, and he felt like he was finally getting the recognition and work he deserved. He was working on the 2001 film The Last Castle, starring Robert Redford and James Gandolfini. Sadly, just as Ruffalo's career was starting to pick up, he was forced to withdraw from acting due to the paralysis of half his face and loss of hearing after the surgery. Mark was heartbroken not to be working anymore. Acting was his passion, and it helped him cope with his constant lingering depression. He fell into a dark hole, isolating himself from his friends and colleagues, and he wouldn't let anyone come and visit him. I was so unbelievably miserable, and what was worse was people's reactions to seeing me. It was shattering to them. He begged directors to give him work, to create characters who had the same facial paralysis that he had, but they all turned him down. He felt like the acting world had rejected him for something that was completely out of his control. The actor also explained that he was limited in his ability to help take care of his children. In one instance, he even dropped his son. He was also confused and had difficulty understanding concepts such as tying a knot. Ruffalo explained that after 6 months of paralysis, the chances of regaining motor control over his whole face would be remote. However, he was determined to prove the doctors wrong. 6 months later, Mark was able to make very slight movements in his face. It was the beginning of a painful recovery that would still take several more months. And the actor finally felt like he was on the right track. Sadly, Ruffalo's best friend isn't the only person close to him who passed away unexpectedly. In 2008, Mark's brother, Scott, was found with a gunshot wound to his head. He was rushed to the hospital and put on life support. Sadly, after a week, the doctor said that Scott would be unable to make a recovery, and he was taken off life support. He was just 39 years old. Initially, it appeared that Scott might have died due to a Russian roulette game gone wrong, but the case was eventually ruled as a homicide. Police questioned 2 suspects, Shaha Adham and her boyfriend, Brian Scofield. After they willingly came forward, according to Adham, she visited Scott to retrieve the keys to her car. She told the police that while she was with Scott, he mentioned something about Russian roulette, and she heard the sound of a gunshot shortly after. Scott had become infamous for his parties and binges on illegal substances, as well as playing with firearms in front of numerous witnesses. Police arrested Adham, but eventually released her, and no charges were filed. Unfortunately, in 2012, Adham passed away, leaving the case without a critical witness. Scott Ruffalo's murder remains unsolved.
You know, it'll be the great mystery of my life.
Mark was broken by the loss of his brother, and the fact that there were never any answers to what really happened made the loss even harder for him to come to terms with. You never get over it, you just get used to it, he said, referring to his brother's death. You get calloused, a little bit harder maybe, so be on guard for that. But take these tragic things and turn them into something meaningful and worthy of the loss. Make it count. Following his brother's death, Ruffalo decided to take a step back from Hollywood. The actor confessed that he'd been considering stepping aside prior to Scott's death because of his growing disillusionment with Hollywood. Mark fired his agent and publicist, left his apartment in LA, and moved to a secluded home in upstate New York with his wife and 3 children. My brother passing away was the final thing that kicked me over. It reminded me that life is short, and you'd better do what you want while you have a chance. However, Ruffalo was unable to completely cut himself off from the acting world. He'd caught the bug and couldn't shake it off. He had finally found something that gave him a purpose, and he didn't want to let it go. He decided that instead of acting, he would make a directorial debut with Sympathy for Delicious, a film about a paralyzed DJ who enters into faith healing. He remained retired from acting until he read the script for The Kids Are All Right.
Just passed away just before that. And I was really disillusioned, probably with my life, but also like filmmaking. And I was like, this is gonna be my last movie as an actor.
Inspired by the story, he signed on for the role of Paul, a man who was contacted by 2 children born to a lesbian couple who used his donated sperm. Ruffalo took the role as an homage to his brother. Mark made a comeback into the acting world, and he was welcomed with open arms. Fans couldn't get enough of him, and from then on, it was only up, up, up for the actor. He knew what it was like to live in a world filled with pain, and he wanted to use the attention on him to spread as much good as he could. He teamed up with the Child Mind Institute to participate in their #MyYoungerSelf initiative, through which celebrities talked about what they would have told their younger selves as they lived with a mental health or learning disorder. The world fell in love with Mark Ruffalo, despite becoming notorious for accidentally spoiling a lot of Marvel films.
I basically spoiled the end of Avengers Infinity War with Don Cheadle, who will no longer do press with me.
He proved to his fans that you could experience an overwhelming amount of loss and health problems and still manage to overcome it. He came out stronger, more determined to be kind and share the joy with others. He's unapologetically himself, and fans love him for it.